Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to be getting out of our comfort zone a little bit and trying a brand new technique and a brand new shape. We had some audio problems with the first half of this video, so I'll be doing a little bit more narrating than I normally would. And we also have some really big news about an announcement of some upcoming content that we have for the channel, so make sure to hang out and watch the whole video so you know what's going on. So first we're going to start out with a little bit of glass. Here in just a moment, I'm going to use one of these wooden tools, we call these blocks, to shape the glass into a nice kind of Q-tip shape. And after that, it's perfect for me to put my starter bubble in. So here in just a moment, you're going to see me blow into the pipe. I'll cap it with my thumb. The air will expand when it comes into contact with the heat, and then a bubble will emerge just right out of the tip. There we go. So now that we have the bubble inside the piece, we're going to cool it down a little bit, and I'm actually going to put a little indentation right off the tip because the plan is we're going to cut the tip of it open so that we have a tube. We're planning on doing what we call a plunger pickup with this one. So I'm going to use my newspaper tool to cool down the outside while my brother blows through the pipe. This is going to shoot that bubble down towards the tip, and then I'm going to use my jacks to put that little perforation right there so that we can knock that little knob off and there will be a hole exposed on the tip. All right, and here we go. I'm going to grab it with my diamond shears, and here in just a second, my brother's going to use the tweezers, and we'll knock it right off. So there we go. That was perfect. Now that there's a hole exposed on the end, all we're going to have to do is heat it up, and then I'm going to start to use my jacks to open it up. This is going to be somewhat of a bowl-looking shape, and we're planning on picking up some cane here in just a moment, and it's going to be a little bit of a different cane pickup than we normally do on the channel. I also have a measurement of the canes that I've already kind of made, and I'm going to have to open this up to be just the right kind of diameter. I take a pie divider, and it takes the length of the canes that I'm going to pick up, divides it by pi, and then lets me know exactly how round my collar needs to be so that I can pick it up. The glass cools down surprisingly quickly, so once we have it nice and hot, we only have a small amount of time to manipulate it until it doesn't want to move anymore, and we have to go back to the glory hole to get more heat. So my brother's going to use the pastorelli to pick up this little ceramic plate. This has our canes on it. So canes are little, usually 6 inches, something around there, lengths of glass that will basically be put together into a little cylinder. We compress them and melt them so that they're all fused together. And once they're all fused, there's no gaps in between them, we can roll them up on a blowpipe to give us our pattern. So I actually made these canes a day or two before we filmed this. This is what we call Zanfirico cane. So we make regular cane, and then we make cane again and twist it to get these lines and striations. So as you can see, my brother's going to compress this real quick, and here in just a moment, while it's nice and hot, I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. Like I said before, this is called the plunger pickup. It can be kind of difficult. This is actually my first time I've ever attempted it, but it went pretty well. So now, instead of rolling it up into a cylinder, we picked it up vertically, and now I have the entire square right on the tip of my pipe. We ran into a few problems whenever I was doing this. We didn't compress it as much as we should, so I started to get some holes. But what we're going to do now is we're going to cut off those squares so that all we have is the nice round pattern. You're going to see here in just a second, my brother's actually pulling it away so that gravity doesn't let it fall back onto the front of the piece. But I'm going to cut off the top part, we'll get a little bit more heat, and then we'll come back and we'll cut the rest of it off. You can even kind of see through there some holes, right? You see those little holes right there? We didn't compress the canes enough, like I said, and these canes are bumpy because they're not traditional canes that are usually smooth. So I got some holes, which I had to then compress, which can be kind of difficult because this was so vertical. So I'm going to come over to the marvering table. This is a metal table we use to shape the glass, and it's made out of thick metal, so it actually cools the glass down a surprising amount. So we're going to go through this process a few more times, and we're just trying to compact it down so that all those holes get smaller and smaller. And you can see it's kind of caving in on me, so I'm going to use my block. This is the same wooden tool I used before, it's just a little bit bigger. And we're just trying to compress it in a bunch of different ways so we don't have any holes. You know, if we have holes in it, then that means that it's not going to be airtight. So anytime I blow through the pipe, it's not actually going to inflate the piece, it's just going to blow through it. So we did a few different moves, and now it looks like everything is nice and compressed. So the piece right now is half clear and half of the pattern. So I don't need any of that clear glass. So we're actually going to get ready to do a transfer on this. I'm going to use my newspaper tool once again to cool down the areas I don't want to expand while my brother blows through the pipe. Once it's nice and expanded out, we're going to actually do the same thing we did before when we were knocking off that knob. We're going to put in what we call a jack line. That's this right here. So I'm using the jacks to put a small kind of indentation right where I want the piece to end. Like I said, I don't need any of that clear, so I'm just going to want this piece in the end. If you ever see fire on the jacks, you see they're kind of smoking. The metal isn't on fire. We actually coat those in beeswax. So now my brother has what we call a punty, just a solid rod with a little bit of glass on the end. It's going to work like a little piece of glue, and I'm going to tag it on right here. And then in a second, we'll add a little bit of water exactly where I want it to break, right on that little jack line that I made. And now here in a moment, I'm going to pull it back onto the rails. We'll give it a little tap, and we'll be separated away. Doing these pickups is definitely a lot different than the normal ones. You have to do one or two more transfers and kind of move it around a little bit more. So it's a little bit more of a pain to actually get your pattern, but the pattern you get in the end looks magnificent. You can see the lines are vertical instead of the normal kind of horizontal lines that we get when we do a regular cane pickup. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. You know, we're really working in the right direction. And now, here in just a moment, I'm going to make a collar, which is basically similar to the plunger pickup that we did in the beginning. It's just a lot smaller. So I'm going to go into the furnace. For anyone who doesn't know, this furnace holds all of our clear glass. So inside that door, it's about 2,000 degrees. It holds about 700 pounds of glass, and we never turn it off. It's always on. It houses all of the clear glass. So now I'm going to blow a bubble through it. We see that bubble pop out. I'll put it back into the furnace, blow through it again so that that bubble kind of melts away. And then we basically have a tube, my blowpipe, this big tube with a ring on the end of it that's going to work as a collar. So we're going to shape this up real quick. I have another size measurement that I'm going to use to make sure that it's going to fit right up to the end of that other little color pattern that we just made. And then once it's the right size, we can bring it over and we'll attach it, break it off with the regular pipe. We'll break it off with the punny that we attached, and then we'll have it on our blowpipe finally. Like I said, this process is a little bit drawn out comparatively to the normal cane roll-up that you've seen us do on the channel. So it's a little bit of a roundabout way to get your pattern going, but it looks fantastic in the end. So now we've got it all good to go, and we can actually start to make our piece. So this is where the audio cuts back in, and you know, we were being dummies and not paying attention. We actually just didn't turn the microphones on, so that's why we had the silence for the first like 6 or 7 minutes of the video. But I want to go ahead and let you guys know this big channel announcement that I was talking about in the beginning, right? So I'm actually going to the Corning Museum of Glass next week. I might actually be there now, depending on when this video is posted. But I'm going to be headed there the first week of August, and I'm taking a class with a glassblower named Jonathan Swans, who blows glass on the Big Island in Hawaii. So he's a great glassblower. I'm really excited to take this class. It's going to be a lot of fun just to go to the museum. But on top of that, I'm actually going to be recording some content with the Museum of Glass. So they have a YouTube channel that's very popular. Some of the biggest glass artists in the world come there to do demos and show like how to blow glass and things like that. Make some very complicated work. So I'm really excited to go there and be able to learn and work with people. I'm going to be blowing glass with a guy named Chris Rochelle. So I'll be posting some videos about it up here on my channel. They'll be posting some videos on their Instagram and their YouTube page, which is really exciting. And I'm going to vlog the whole thing. So I'm going to be going to Niagara Falls. I'm going to be going to Corning. And I'm actually going to go to New York City afterwards to check out the city and have a good time with my fiance, Megan. So I'm really excited about this whole trip. I'm actually really nervous right now. As I'm recording this, it's the 2nd of August, so I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning on the 3rd to go to Corning. But it should be a bunch of fun, and I'm going to try to bring you guys along as much as I can. So I've got a bunch of camera equipment and a bunch of stuff ready to go, and I'm trying to make sure I have everything ready for the trip. But this is going to be really exciting. So thanks for listening to me, and let's go ahead and get back to the piece. I'll start explaining what we're doing again. So like I was saying before, you know, this tool in my hand is our newspaper tool. It's basically about 12 sheets of newspaper folded up and soaked in water. And the idea behind it is, you know, the hot areas of the glass are the places that are going to move. The cold areas aren't going to want to move. So anytime I put my newspaper on an area that I don't want it to expand in, when my brother is blowing, it's going to cool down the expansion in that area. So we can essentially control where the bubble moves. It's one of my most used tools. You'll probably see we use that tool more than any tool in the studio. I love the newspaper tool. It's really good at manipulating the bubble. The bubble always wants to take the path of least resistance, so cooling it down with different tools and then having it inflated by your assistant is like a core part of glass blowing. It's something you really have to get your head around when you're making vessels. So now we're going to put in another jack line, and this is what's going to establish the top of the piece. So the bottom is going to be right off the tip, and eventually we're going to have to break it off of this pipe and do another transfer to a punty rod like we did before with the color pattern. So we're essentially deciding where we want to break it off. The idea is that area is going to be the thinnest, and since it's the thinnest, when the piece starts to cool down, that's the area that's going to want to break. So we have to make sure that we get a really good impression on there, and we have to make sure it's nice and thin. So usually we blow while we're putting the jack line in as well. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take a big heat on this, and we're gonna really start to elongate it. I want this piece to be a teardrop shape is the idea in the end. So we'll get it nice and hot, swing it back and forth a little bit with gravity, and use a few different methods to try to really elongate the piece.
Blow. Off.
So I also want this piece to be flat, so we're going to use our cork paddles. These are just 2 paddles made out of really dense cork, and my brother's going to flip the piece back and forth. He caps it with his thumb so none of the air kind of escapes the piece, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and forth and kind of squish it into that nice kind of shape. You can really see the teardrop shape kind of start to come out now.
It's smoking. We'll do that again.
Perfect. So everything's looking pretty good so far. It's nice and flat. We really have the bottom half of the piece established, but it's gotten a little bit thin on the bottom, and I want to make sure it doesn't break. So what we're going to do is we're going to add what we call a patch. So I'm just going to kind of trail this on and then flatten it, and this will be a nice thick spot for us to put our punty once we transfer it off of this pipe to the next one. So now my brother's going to take a thicker punty rod, and we're going to get another little punty. Like I said before, this little piece of glass just works as a little piece of glue. He'll shape it up into a little bit of like a Q-tip shape, nice and round on the tip, and then we'll bring it over, tag it onto the bottom, and we'll break the piece off. We'll be off to the races.
Ready?
Yeah.
Those transfers always make me a little bit nervous. You know, if the piece is going to break, that's usually when it happens. There's a lot going on, a lot of temperature difference, but it went great. So now we can really start to kind of pull it out longer and longer. I'm going to use my tweezers to grab the lip of it and just begin to stretch it out wide. So this is one of my favorite moves for stretching the glass. We're going to use our jacks to cool the glass down just a little bit. We'll put in a small jack line, and then I can begin to pull away. So check this out.
No, I'm okay.
And there we go. We got a good bit of length on that, and all we got to do is cut off the tip, and we'll basically have our piece done.
Yep, give it a tap. He's like, I'm just gonna go one blade. Yeah, you're right.
So here on this heat, I overheated it a little bit. You can see that it started to kind of droop down on the end, and it actually sealed itself off. So it's no longer a vase, it's more of like a sculptural piece. So what we're gonna do is cut off just a small bit on the end, and this will end up being the piece. A little bit of a mistake, but I'm still really happy with how it turned out.
Let's leave it like this.
You want me to try to stand it?
Yes.
And now it's time to load this thing into the annealer. So as usual, we're going to put a little bit of water on the connection point so that it can cool down. It really wants to break right there. And then here in just a moment, my brother's going to grab it with his Kevlar gloves. I'll tap the pipe a little bit with a wooden baton. We call this a donkey. And then we'll be able to load it into our annealer so that it can cool down overnight. All right, guys, and there we go. So like I said, this was a new technique and a new kind of shape for me, but I'm really happy with how they came out. You know, the vertical pickup, the plunger pickup is always super cool, and I want to try more stuff like this in the future. I love this thing. So as usual, this piece is available for purchase. You can find a link to it in the description box down below. So guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm sorry I chat your ear off more than normal. I'm really excited about this Corning trip, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel. And thanks for everything. Y'all are the best. Be safe out there.